Timna Chapter 11. Timna's foot still ached as she hobbled into the family area. Mehetabel knelt by the cooking fire, coaxing it with small sticks. Her mother-in-law held a large wooden bowl in her hands. "Timna, child," she said, "I'm afraid Zeruiah is ill. Her fever is high, and we will need to bathe her with cool water to bring it down." "I feared yesterday that she was not well. She seemed so badly frightened when the lamp went out and was so pale afterward," Timna answered. "Let me go at once and stay with her." She reached out her hands for the bowl. "First, child, you need to eat. There is bread and honey for you. Mehetabel is making tea. When you have eaten, bring some of the tea for Zeruiah. Then you may stay with her. It would be good for your foot, too, if you stay off of it for a day. Mehetabel and I will see to the rest." "Yes, Mother Abihail. And I will bring a bit of bread and honey for her, too," Timna said. "Good. Perhaps she will take a little," Abihail replied. Mehetabel had been feeding the large fire and soon had the water for tea heating. Timna sat close to the stove to soak in its warmth. Mehetabel shook her head. "Poor Zeruiah, she is far too thin and likely to catch chills and fever. We must fatten her up." Mehetabel looked down at her own body, round and stout enough for two Zeruiahs. "Of course," she said, "I don't mean to fatten her quite so much as me." Her somber look turned into a cheerful smile. "I do love to eat, and it shows." She patted the wide folds of her robe where it draped in front and chuckled. "Oh, Mehetabel, you are the dearest, happiest person I know," Timna said, "and I wouldn't change you one bit for all the world." Alone with Zeruiah, Timna laid the untouched bread aside. Zeruiah had sipped a little of the tea and now lay back, exhausted, her eyes closed. Again and again throughout the morning, Timna gently bathed the girl's hot skin. When Mother Abihail brought a fresh bowl of cool herbed water, she felt Zeruiah's forehead and sighed. "You have been here for hours, Timna," she said. "Mehetabel has food for you. I will stay here for a while with her." As Timna left, Abihail was singing softly to Zeruiah. It was 2 days before Zeruiah's fever broke and she was able to sit up while Timna helped her with a bowl of broth. As Zeruiah lay back against the pillows, winds outside sounded a furious howling, and a shadow crossed the girl's face. Watching her, Timna wondered if Zeruiah was still afraid of the flood, even though they were safe inside the ark, or was it something else that bothered her? Something deep inside. Later that afternoon, as Timna combed Zeruiah's hair and wove it into a long, thick braid, she began to tell her how she used to braid her sister Ephah's hair. With a cry, Zeruiah covered her face. "How can you bear to talk of her, knowing she was left behind? All of them left to die. My own family. I know they refused to listen, to believe, but my youngest brother, he was so small, so helpless, and I couldn't save them," she wailed. Timna felt tears in her own eyes. "Zeruiah," she said, putting her arm around her, "I know what you are saying. It was the reason I ran away and hid and then hurt my foot. But there's something I've not told anyone. Will you listen?" With a faint nod of her head that she was ready, Zeruiah wiped her eyes and looked at Timna. "Like you, Zeruiah, I thought I couldn't stand it any longer, thinking of my poor sister Ephah and the others we left behind. I ran and hid. I didn't really know what I would do, only that somehow I needed to mourn for them all. After the accident, I must have fallen asleep, but I know that what followed was no dream." Timna's voice hushed with awe as she told of the one who had come and filled the room with light. Zeruiah's eyes never left Timna's face as she listened to the strange yet wonderful things. They sank into her heart like the water that had cooled her fever. "Oh, Zeruiah, God spoke to Noah, and all of it has come true. The flood, the coming of the animals, the ark. I know he is telling us to trust him." For a while, both girls were silent. Then Timna kissed Zeruiah's forehead and helped her lie back against the pillows. As the evening wore on, it was decided that Timna would stay with Zeruiah while their husbands spent the night among the restless sheep and goats. It would be worse in the cattle pens with the larger animals, where him and his father would take turns quieting them. Timna saw the kinner in her father-in-law's hands and knew tonight he would be singing to the cattle. In the morning, when Timna woke up, the rain still beat down on the ark as they had for so many weeks. The sand clocks Japheth had fashioned for each of their rooms in the living quarters told her it was morning, though the dark shadows outside the reach of the dim light of the oil lamps were the same. She watched as the sand slowly began to seep into the day part of the clock. Each night, as she reversed the clock, Timna counted the passing of another day. The ark seemed to be traveling swiftly, and though it still rocked, At least it was not tossing violently. Zorua stirred, then sat up. Color had returned to her face in the faintest of smiles as she greeted Timna. "If you will wait for me, I think I will get up and go with you," she said. Though Timna still hobbled around, it felt good to be back helping Mother Abigail and Mehetabel. The morning meal was ready when the men came in, tired and smelling of the sheep and goats. Behind them, her dogs followed with tails wagging and noses sniffing at the strong odor of dried fish stew. Timna smiled. She knew it was one of Silk's favorite foods. Timna passed the bread while Mehetabel sprinkled sweet herbs on the large bowl of stew. As they bowed for prayer and Noah began, Timna placed her good foot in front of Silk, who was far too close to the serving bowl Mehetabel had put down. Mother Abigail's sharp eyes now turned to the large tear in her husband's robe as he raised a piece of bread to his mouth. "You've torn your robe, husband," she said. "I'll have to mend it right away before it rips more." Ham wiped his mouth and laughed. "Aren't you going to tell them, Father, how it happened?" Timna looked at her father-in-law expectantly, but he was already dipping another piece of bread into the stew. "You might as well tell them, Ham," he said, "but try to keep it simple, son." "Well," Ham began, "we had seen to all the rest of the cattle, but by the time we got to the young bulls, they were already pushing and bellowing at one another. I was going to use my stick to part them so that we could tether them for the night. But Father said he thought he'd just sing to them a bit first and calm them down. He started to play the kinnor, but just then the winds picked up so that you couldn't hear anything else. Quick as lightning, one of those bulls lowered his head and went for the kinnor. Between my stick and Father's swift kick, he turned to him before he could do him any harm. But in the excitement, one of his horns tore into Father's robe. "I assure you, my dear wife," Noah said, "from now on we will tether first and sing next." Timna laughed hard along with the others. She winked at Zorua, who was laughing just as hard. "Lentils and bulls," she whispered to Zorua, and the two of them laughed until the tears came to their eyes. Seated on the other side of Timna, Shem looked puzzled. "What's all this about lentils and bulls?" he asked her. Timna managed not to laugh again as she shook her head to let him know it was nothing he should worry about. Noah stood and reached for his kinnor. "Now that you have laughed at me, you may sing with me, and this kinnor saved from the horns of the bull." With his strong voice, Noah began to sing as he played. It was one of Timna's favorite songs, a song of thanksgiving to the Creator for all his works. She sang with all her heart. At bedtime, Timna unwrapped her foot and examined the swollen purple flesh around her ankle. It seemed to be taking long to heal, and she carefully rewrapped it for the night. Shem was already nearly asleep, exhausted from tending to frightened animals. As he drifted off, he mumbled, "Never told me about the bulls and the lentils." Timna began to explain the joke between her and Zorua, but stopped as she heard Shem snoring. Smiling to herself, she lay down and softly hummed a line of a song. "God, the Lord is good in all his ways." And then she added, the rains will stop one day soon." But before she could think of another line, she closed her eyes and knew no more until she awoke.